Hello, and welcome back to the last episode in our first season of Smashing the Sudoku. I'm Thomas Snyder, and we're really appreciative for all the times you like these videos, when you send your comments, and certainly if you subscribe to this channel. You can continue to send your questions to ads@gmpuzzles.com, but today's your question, which comes from somebody somewhere, and I'm sorry for giving away your last name, but somebody somewhere asked, has anyone actually submitted a viewer question, or you just make these up to fill time? And we didn't make these up to fill time. They're actually the content of our hidden puzzle. And so we're going to talk today of our 10th anniversary contest solution. This was something that we wanted to rerun alongside our initial 2013 puzzles, in part because the initial series of 60 puzzles I wrote as I was starting the site had within itself a hidden puzzle at the time. I didn't remove the original file names, which still contain that hidden puzzle, so we had some people submitting the 2013 answer. The 2023 answer came from watching the Smashing the Sudoku series. And so the half-baked idea that came to me around the new year as I was thinking through how to fill some time on GM Puzzles was really reworking things we want to do as a company, was to replay early content, but start to have some conversation topics about what have we learned in 10 years, learn some more about my own stories and puzzles, and spread through those short conversation topics and Easter eggs, and the Easter eggs would come together to form a contest. That was the light idea. Not a lot of glue yet, but we figured, again, we'd announce there was a contest, slightly, and then with more volume, and then eventually, like 7 or 8 weeks in, just say, here it is, here's the leaderboard, has anyone solved it, and see how far people got. And this was going to be made up of 10 mini puzzles, basically subject identification or trivia puzzles, one that would be contained within each video. And then there eventually be a bigger step using indexing and other things to get out an answer phrase. And so that's the concept of this here. It's not necessarily a structure you would have known entering the hidden contests, but it's a pretty common puzzle hunt style to at least have individual components that add up to a bigger solution. And so we're going to go through week by week and give you the story of these weeks in short, but hopefully sufficient detail. Week 1 needed to give a little bit of a suggestion to watch out for more, but it's also going to be a video like we never made before. First, it was the first time we did the Smashing Sudoku intro, and we were clearly riffing off Cracking the Cryptic and other influences at the time, and even having viewer questions was a new made-up thing, and so we figured a lot of people would say, what the heck is going on? I was going through a hypomanic episode at the time, and so I was myself not necessarily in, like, my normal speaking state, is in a higher rate of speech and higher rate of other sort of ideas coming out. And so when people sometimes listen back to these videos, you can sometimes get a sense for how I'm doing in a week based on these videos. We didn't know if people would question what was going on, and so it was challenging to introduce John Jay's question of what was our favorite puzzle game for 2022 and give all the background and have it make sense. But there's sort of two aspects of the discussion. We talked about Wordle and how Wordle is very much even an earlier idea. It's appeared lots of times, but particularly in the game show lingo, which is what was referenced in my kind of conversation there, and talked about advertisements for the future as part of the conversation too, but we made sure to use the word greed a lot in that conversation. Greed is another TV game show that I love. Scrabble is a different word game, was also kind of referred to there. And so across all those, you might be able to get to Chuck Woolery. And we asked specifically about a catchphrase that he used to use in these shows. And 2 and 2, as a way he would throw out to commercial, was the first set of numbers we wanted to give. And this was an unusual set of numbers, but I felt it'd be helpful to start with 2 distinct numbers in this way, because eventually the pattern of the numbers would be broken if we had a phrase like 2 and 2. So anyway, with that as a weird thing to see, I closed out this section by saying, if that seems like nonsense, it probably is, but in the world of puzzles, nonsense is oftentimes where there are some hidden signals. So trying to clue to watch out at the start of these videos, not because I was crazy at the time, although maybe I might have been a little bit, I say hypomanic at the time, but at least a starting point for this. Week 2 is a week delayed, and it was a week delayed in part because I did go on a trip. I did get additional hospitalization and mental health observation for a period, got back to kind of a better state of health. I quit my science job. It took actually many more weeks to play out, but my last day of working was between week 1 of the re-release and week 2 of this re-release. I announced I was going on sabbatical, and I'll have more to say about that in the future, but for sure this was a challenging sort of thing to come back to. I planted the seeds of this whole contest without necessarily finishing it, and here I was making 9 more weeks of content to at least make the website work. And so this was something that was the theme I chose to take as I talked about 2022 and things I'd change. And so I've come through a challenging year. I'm now 43, but I just lived through the year 42 in different circles. 42 is an important number. We'll come back to that later on. But after dealing with different challenges and things I wouldn't necessarily change, things that I've learned through that, I was talking about a puzzle I wrote while I was manic. I was writing the equivalent of an escape house while I was going a little bit crazy on March 16th and March 17th of last year. And so the picture on the right is an example of a mystery hunt inspired puzzle. I was writing to people who might break into my house and try to like solve my three doors puzzle. I guess I was writing the equivalent of Ready Player One for my list of friends, and no one has actually found my billions of dollars yet. But maybe in the future, that's the reason to watch these videos. Is maybe I've been writing a puzzle hunt for my whole life, and it comes in bits and spurts. But that's probably not the same part of me talking right now. Anyway, I said in the video that I wouldn't rewrite the record books, and even that was an allusion to the puzzle that this like image from the right is. You know, this thing about I last played in 2007. This is a puzzle I wrote when we won the mystery hunt that year as the evil Midnight Bombers, What Bomb at Midnight, which was rewriting the record books. This is a puzzle that's the least like other puzzles I've written. It's a sports history puzzle. And it's one that almost didn't make the hunt because the hunt is like, well, there may not be an audience for this puzzle. It's like, what the MIT Mystery Hunt is where these unusual puzzles go. And so, as an example of someone who really loves sports in my life and loves the randomness, but actually the stories that come through the randomness of sports, rewriting the record books was something that I alluded back to and was kind of, you didn't need to know it to solve this week 2 puzzle, but it was important if you want to have the context for it. I said judge is an important word for this week in the video. I also said something like if the pitches were thrown differently, maybe some number of an asterisk by it isn't beaten. I was talking about sort of things from last year. And so as a reference to the Aaron Judge and Roger Maris home run chase from 2022 for the AL home run record 61 with an asterisk is the famous number there, in part because it was a longer season than when Babe Ruth hit 60, also for the New York Yankees. And of the things I can't be forgiven for, my life being a Yankees fan is one of them, but I grew up in New York State and my mother was a Yankees fan. I followed that team. I separately followed the Bills and the Sabres and other teams from Buffalo, where I was actually born. And that is where the first thing here about, you know, rewriting this field goal kick. We've got a lot of great memories, but not perfectly written memories from Buffalo sports over the years. Week 3 continued that story about telling more about places I've lived and been, and it actually started with more of a jokey question from Harry H. about what streets I lived on as a child. This is a little bit more like a fishing question. And so I actually had in the video some jokey references, including a lead string about wherever you can find my towel as one of the answers for that. And I talked about, for me, like one of the important things in my life right now is you know, sort of broadening the meaning of family. My closest friends are actually probably my family. Like I'm not married, I don't have kids. I'm probably not likely to get married or have kids, at least with my social trajectory at this age. But the people that I can solve puzzles with, the people I can think through and solve hard problems with, including my scientific teams, are my family. And so I love traveling back to see them. And part of this year that I'm taking off from deeper work is to be able to re-travel this country and travel to places I've not seen. And so in this video, I talked about I-5 and I-90. Those are 2 roads. One is the California to Seattle connection, 2 places I've lived. The other, I-90, gets me through where my brother lives in Chicago, gets me to Buffalo, and gets me to Boston. So every place I've lived is on the I-5 or the I-90. And so I was jokingly asking if there's a shared hypotenuse to those 2 roads. And the closest thing that exists is an LA to Chicago road that I talked about, a mother road featured in songs, and that's Route 66. So 3 puzzles so far, 3 that come back to numbers, and we'll see that the theme continues. Made up name Ivan I asked what is my favorite part of puzzle, least favorite part of puzzle hunting. And so one of the things that's tough with puzzle hunting, with hidden puzzles in general, is you often are given pieces of information but no instructions. And so a lot of stuff can go wrong. And even for this hidden puzzle ended up being much harder, I think, than I expected. But we'll talk more about that later. Even when you think that you're on the right track as a solver, if you're not getting amplifying signals, you may not be on the right track. And there's a game called Spaghetti where you actually just choose random words. This was made by Eric Berlin, and people then try to come up with some signal within those words, but it's always going to be made up because there's no answer. This is a content with no answer. And so I wanted something non-spaghetti as my content, so I chose a non-spaghetti Western for this week. It's an Elmore Leonard story that was put into films twice, I mentioned. I also said as confirmation, like the spaghetti form is like, you see that number and you think semaphore and you get to the letter W. Well, there is a semaphore W if you think of 310 to Yuma, but 310 to Yuma is the answer for this week, not anything that 310 gets you to, like a clock W or anything else. Week 5, Ben B.A. asks, what are your favorite television shows or web series, and talk about different things that I enjoy, but particularly I got to the context of watching international games and shows that sort of test intelligence in different modes. I mentioned a few of them. I actually talked a lot about Only Connect, which is a game I shared with friends and got our puzzle community in the Bay Area to start writing Only Connect rounds and have now broadened out from there, but this was in the early days when we were sharing Season 1 and Season 2 movies. And I made up a sequences puzzle. I said it could be musical, and this had 30, 25, 21, and then question marks. And for some of these videos, I'd opened with some Radiohead songs, but this was the last video opened with music, and I opened with the song Make You Feel My Love. This is it was written by Bob Dylan for Time Out of Mind. It was first recorded and released, I guess, by Billy Joel for his Greatest Hits Volume 3, which is where I first heard it. But it was covered by Adele on 19, and Adele's albums are named for the ages when she wrote them. And so if you follow her, and she's one of the many musicians that inspire me, 30, 25, 21, or 19 are numbers you can associate in music back to that artist. So 19 was the answer for week 5. Week 6 was a question straight on point. Do you think Grandmaster Puzzles has been a success? I ask this to myself all the time, and my answer is always hedging in the middle because we aren't commercially successful by far. We have an audience that at best is numbered in the low thousands, and we sell books in the order of the low hundreds. Like, that's not a great audience, but we have a passionate audience. They're kind of my family. Like, I view Grandmaster Puzzles giving puzzles back to that space, and while that was the meta context of this discussion, there was something about like the founding of the country and the founding of governments, and we talked about the spirit of the founding and trust the process, which is a phrase that refers to the Philadelphia 76ers. And in general, those allusions added up to the number 76 for this week as the relevant things to think through. Week 7 was when we really went off the rails. Franz F. asked, what's yellow and dangerous? Cross it out. How many roads must a man walk down? Here's where we really broke the fourth wall, and we decided not to answer this mostly harmless question because the answers didn't seem too relevant, but instead gave info that there was a hidden contest. We were in week 7 of it. We talked about the prizes, but this was a time for sure that because of these questions, hopefully you could get the answers just from the questions themselves. These are famously things that people were figuring out could be the questions to the answer of 42, which is in Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books. And so that space of 42 and other things through the talk, this is the week that 42 is the answer. And for those who appreciated those connections through the weeks, like hopefully you got something from that. I chose a lot of the things I follow and am interested by. There are definitely things that were missed. For sure that even Bob Dylan's another touch point here. Bob Dylan does not appear elsewhere in this puzzle, but how many roads must a man walk down? Again, from a song from Bob Dylan that Douglas Adams chose to connect to. Week 8, we decided to make the pieces a little easier for sure to just get started. So what do you think is the secret sauce of Grandmaster Puzzles? And we got into the concept of how we try to have variety and originality, but there's no magic number of puzzles we want to publish. And so we're not like a ketchup company that was trying to get you pretty quickly to Heinz and 57 sauce, which is, I guess, a company that used to have more than 57 things, but then they found it was a good marketing slogan to have exactly 57 varieties, and then 57 sauce became a product. And I guess this is like ketchup and mayonnaise is whatever's in that jar, but sauces are fundamentally weird and culturally distinct things. And so traveling the world and sensing sauces is the curious thing to do. Week 9, now the home stretch. We now, 2 weeks prior to this, had announced there was a contest puzzle. And so we wanted to help people out. And so this question, but not from David D. David D is a made-up name. This question kind of came through our normal GM Puzzles blog, and we wanted to put some things in. So can you give us a bit of a hint about the 10-year anniversary puzzle? And we came back and said, well, we won't give a bit of a hint. We'll give 5 bits of info. And in particular, we also said a comment like, we want this to feel more like checkers and chess, just enough info, but not move it to the wrong space of difficulty. And so those 2 different things clue you into 32. 5 bits is 2 to the 5th, 32 pieces of info. Checkers is played across 32 squares on a chessboard. The 64 squares aren't all used when you play checkers. And so 32 is the answer for this week. We're running a bit out of steam, but we're running to the end of this long puzzle series. Week 10, George G, do you ever get writer's block as a puzzle constructor? And I was absolutely suffering writer's block this time. So I made up this question because I didn't know how to clue the last number in a way I really liked. And it was also when I was still dealing with the fact this is the only puzzle I've written this whole year, in part because I'm not right now in a state of mind or creativity that I feel like writing puzzles. I'm trying to solve for some different questions and also solve right now, like first is just getting healthy again. I've been doing a lot of exercise, been losing weight. My heart rate is back where I want it to be. As I say, I've been taking a break away from work. I've been visiting friends. Like Grandmaster Puzzles is an everyday thing for me right now. But that made me think very much 10 years ago when I left my job in science in December 12th of 2012 and then started Grandmaster Puzzles in January of the upcoming year. It sort of hits back to that place in my life. And so it's kind of a tough place to be when you're trying to like write a puzzle series that's, may or may not be hitting its audience, but where all you have is some small ideas. You have lots of ways because you've got a very easy number. You always felt this would be an easy number when you got to writing the puzzle and you didn't have a way to write it. And so try to pull something out as just a half-baked idea, but a set of half-baked ideas all together might work as a puzzle, and so I flashed this image in the video, which had 5 different images, as well as a style of puzzle, which I've seen many times where you have like a letter, and a letter, and those are common phrases, and they come up to things. And so these are all some number of blah in a blah. And what some solvers may have been able to do, it's not clear if solvers solve this. Again, you can solve this whole puzzle without knowing all of these 10 answers, which is a benefit of having the multiple feeders to the final solution. The 5 images are collectively but reinforced by breaking the whole puzzle to be Woodrow Wilson, a stone, a sonnet, a picture of silicon, and Fortnite. Fortnite is a game. I couldn't find exactly Fortnite as a concept of time, but these 5 things work together to match into these 5 clues. There are 14 days in a fortnight. There are 14 lines in a sonnet. There are 14 points by Woodrow Wilson. There are 14 pounds in a stone, and there are 14 protons, or most often neutrons, in an atom of silicon. That's how all those phrases can be run. They all share the number 14. I'd grade this puzzle as a D or an F, but it works, I guess, for this concept. If anyone can get little pieces of this and get any 2 of them to get you to 14, that's enough. I'd certainly have put more time to kind of editing this down if this was going to be going into a larger collection, but I guess it's good enough. You know, it's easy to be self-critical, and one of the challenges with this contest in general is doing this on my own. We'll sort of get to that in a bit. And so where this is a different kind of puzzle for Grandmaster Puzzles, not sure it would match our audience and certainly wasn't fitting through our normal process. So getting to the end of this video, putting it all together, we had 10 weeks, 10 question askers. We got to important numbers. These were always either a 2-digit or a 2-part number. And you say it might be inelegant to have things like 2 and 2 and 3, 10 in there, but I liked having at least 2 instances of 2-part numbers. There's an earlier instance of this puzzle where it's going to have 9 to 5, the song by Dolly Parton, be another instance of a 2-part number. And that's because I wanted to get the sense of pairs. And the only thing that come in pairs in these videos, there are always 2 puzzles that are in these videos. And that you could have thought it's the puzzle style or the puzzle theme or names. Not all of them were named puzzles, but they all had puzzle styles. And so this is the intended fodder for the puzzle, the things to be thinking through. There's something we haven't used yet, which is anything about the question askers. So when you get things in a given order, it's probably not the right order. So reorder by question asker. This was a little blatant on the nose, but sometimes when you're struggling to make sure your audience finds the right things, Abby A, Ben B, Caitlin C, they all start with the same letters. So not only is there an initialism of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J at the end, but the first names also try to like force that. So this is a hammer. Since we have in part a non-English audience or non-English as first language audience, we wanted to make sure we did a bit of. So now if you look at all this in this order and say, well, I've got 2 numbers, can I index into these styles with those numbers? You get these letters in red, and going across, you get ermiatevi, and it's like nonsense. But reading down, if you take the first puzzle styles together, you get email, a favo. You take the second puzzle styles together, you get writ, Sudoku. All together, email a favorite Sudoku. The answer to this was sending in a favorite Sudoku of yours to ads@gmpuzzles.com. So that address we've had through our YouTube series was the contest submission address for this time. We got 4 correct answers. 2 of them submitted the same puzzle on the left. So the first puzzle Grandmaster Puzzles ever posted are a logo puzzle, which also has the initials GP, which is one of the initials of one of our winners. Was sent in twice. One of our parquet Sudoku, which we don't, I call them tile Sudoku, that doesn't always come together, is in there. We had a lot of these in Mutant Sudoku and other books. And we got a ripple effect, but it technically has some Sudoku-like solving. I actually don't know who wrote this puzzle. This is the PuzzleLink puzzle that was sent in, but it doesn't have that information about the initial author. So if anyone has that or knows that, these were what the winner sent to us, Stephen W., Mindran L., Giovanni P., and Barbatos. Collectively, they got eStore gift cards to buy books from us. And they will, once we finally figure out how to start it, be getting a subscription for a year into our new 2 Puzzles a Day series when it launches. We've been talking for a while about moving beyond the blog. We don't have all the pieces to move beyond the blog easily, but we think we can at least start releasing daily puzzles again to an audience of those who are willing to support the site to see them. So that's some of the stuff that's upcoming. I wanted to give you some facts about the contest puzzle. These may or may not be fun. Again, as the sole author, the sole editor, and the sole tester of these puzzles, which is itself a fun fact, would let you judge these. For sure, we wanted to hide a lot of allusions to cracking the cryptic. Smashing the Sudoku at the start was meant to hit that right on the nose, and then through it, I tried to do different things with Simon and others sort of do through the series, but let's get smashing as opposed to let's get cracking, and put some knowledge bombs in at least once. I always find it funny when the knowledge bomb is addition up to 45 in that. Used music in a few of the videos. There's even times cracking the cryptic when I was going through my mental health challenges was like Simon was playing songs from the OK Computer album back at me, so things like that. And another thing we've done in this side, like, there are lots of highly edited YouTube videos that get a lot more views than ours. Simon's been pretty direct, including in the press, about how they were surprised, but they still go through long unedited cuts. They don't sort of do all the editing at the end of the day like other channels, but they've been successful. And so there's no doubt we're inspired by them and their community, and so we wanted to have some fun with that. And so hopefully those who follow us both got some enjoyment from what I was trying to do. We're not going to continue smashing the Sudoku. At least I have no plans for a second season yet, but for those who at least enjoyed parts of that, definitely thanks for that content. We also tried in general, and the we, I guess through this video is always we tried to have meaningful names, or at least connections back to names that are real names of people, first name and last initial when we use them. This is one of only 2 puzzles in our history that was never playtest or edited by anyone else. And the other puzzle of this was the first hidden contest puzzle in the first 60+1 that the site was. So if there was an error we did at the start of this site, which is have a miscalibrated puzzle we hoped our testers would randomly find, we did the same thing here, which is we hoped this contest would be something our testers might randomly find as we got through releasing these videos. And I'm not going to say it's a mistake in general. What it meant is we probably were miscalibrated and difficult in expectation. Also, probably fun factor. We could have done some things that made this even richer as a puzzle, but I think it came together well enough. And hopefully in the comments, if you have your own opinions, please feel free to voice them. But again, these aren't our standard style puzzle, and the hidden contest you don't want too many people to know about, because it's gotta mum's the word. This is the first puzzle, though, on the site I can remember partially releasing before it was done. And so it actually had different starting points. Like when I first made this, which is in about a couple hours on a weekend in January when I was dealing with a lot of different things and power outages and dealing with things for work, I got at least a phrase, email us a logical haiku, which didn't make any sense necessarily, but I always love creative results to it. And that worked for the Tom Tom Sudoku release and several other things. You can see some seeds in this puzzle, like the Chuck Woolery. Heinz we came back to, 61 for Asterisk we came back to. We got some numbers which were really bad, like 83. Is that like, do I really want to talk about a second coming of age, which is the age technically someone can have a second bar? Like many of these just weren't going to work. 9/11 was a big shrug. And so I knew when I was actually like coming back to this after week 1, I needed to make it better. We had different ways we could still keep that last O and that last U. We had email us a logical mashu that became email a favorite Sudoku. And I actually liked the email a favorite Sudoku answer better than what I started with. But again, this is a fact. The contest evolved after it had started, but no one from just that trailing O and trailing U could have actually solved it yet. So it only became fully solvable as it was released. Last sort of fun sort of story, there's always the places people went awry. And it's not that they weren't seeing things, they just weren't yet seeing enough of the big picture. But we got a great story from a person who, after week 7, was certainly seeing 42 being hit in the face. And this is when we were talking about the contest itself. And so they went to check what is actually on our WordPress post 42. And it goes to a more interesting space than you might think. It actually goes to a link that talks about an open contest, and that contest is our Tom 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 Challenge contest from another period of our, I think it was like probably like 2 years into it was when I was at 200 total puzzles. I love this puzzle, but its answer is not the answer to this contest either. But this contest got some people rediscovering some of our old content in different ways. Like, good enough. Like, sometimes you win some, you lose some. And so that will close out this video with our 10-year anniversary contest. So continue to send your comments and questions to us for real this time if you have them. Even just adding them to these videos. I do read everything you share and reply when I can. If this is the end of season 1 of Smashing the Sudoku, what's next for GM Puzzles for this YouTube channel? Keep watching to find out. Like, we appreciated all the things you gave to this community, and hopefully you enjoyed some of the stuff we gave back by making this contest for you all. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of your day.